Cool. Okay. Hi everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. Ernest, can you just confirm that you can see the slides?
No, we can't see the screen for now.
You can or you can't?
We can't.
Oh, really? Sorry, let me just yeah, I should probably share screen, that's why. So let me just click on that. Perfect. How about now?
Yes, it works.
Sweet. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Great. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. And welcome to today's mini webinar. So a bit about me. Most of you probably know who I am, but I'm Araminta. I run a content marketing agency called Mint Studios, and we help fintech companies turn their blogs into a customer acquisition channel by helping them rank for specific keywords that indicate that someone's close to buying. And about me, I used to work as a marketing consultant. I've helped over 20 fintech companies grow their companies or acquire customers with content. And with me, I have Ernest, who is one of our content strategists here at Mint Studios. A few notes on the format. So what I'll do is I'll be going through our presentation here, and throughout the entire webinar, you're welcome to type in any questions that you have. The slides will probably last between 30 and 40 minutes, and then we'll leave 5 to 10 minutes towards the end for questions. So the entire thing should last maybe 45 to 50 minutes. So just so you know. And yeah, so that's us here. And what I would like to talk about today is, first of all, we're going to talk about what is the type of content that keeps your prospects and customers happy, but also your leadership team, who are the people who are asking for specific KPIs, for specific numbers. And then we're going to talk, I'm going to go through the survey that we did. We surveyed over 20 fintech marketers and asked them a few questions about content, and I'm going to be presenting those results as well. And then finally, we'll discuss the content opportunity in B2B fintech in 2022-2023. So let's get started. This is just a sneak peek of some of the results that we got. We asked people how their content team is set up. We asked them what kind of content they're publishing. So we'll go into that in some more detail later on. So stay tuned for that. So based on the discussions that we've been having as an agency with friends in the fintech industry, with prospects, with clients, there's a few common themes that we've been hearing, which I'm sure you relate to. Marketing budgets are being cut, right? There's no denying that that's happening, and that's translating to fewer resources and basically less bandwidth to really do what's needed in marketing, in the marketing space. And it also translates into more pressure from the leadership team for results. So I'm sure that you've also been feeling that, perhaps more pressure on getting, leads, on hitting your KPIs, or on simply measuring the impact of marketing, of what you're doing. And some quotes that we've been hearing are things like, we want to see more results before investing into X, which can sometimes be frustrating because you need more budget for X to work. So we've seen that. And then just simply like, where are the leads? Like, where are the results? So these are the kind of things that we've been hearing. And also in the survey, this is the kind of themes that we've been seeing as well. And there's this like little balance that I put together because as fintech marketers, there's kind of two main kind of issues that you're handling, right? You've got the leadership team that's asking for results, for KPIs, that's giving you a smaller budget and maybe asking you to work within that budget. And then you've got still the customers that you have to take care of. You have to still build that trust, still build that brand. So it's this constant balance between the two. Maybe you could even call it, short-term and long-term results. And from a content perspective, what we want to discuss here is what kind of content keeps those two happy. So really what we want to talk about here, what I want to talk about is what we've seen works and the kind of framework that we use that's helped some fintech companies grow customer acquisition by 700% and even bring in customers worth thousands of dollars. And so we're going to walk through that framework and just to show you what we've seen works, all while keeping the customers happy, building that brand. So as I said before, can you create content that keeps that balance, keeps the leadership team happy with results, still builds trust with customers? Well, we're going to show you what we've seen works, and hopefully it's something that can work for you as well. The answer to that question is yes, with content that is expert-based, but also focuses on customer acquisition. So the customer acquisition part keeps the leadership team happy. The expert-based content part helps build that brand, helps build trust with your customers. And so there's this framework that we use, and essentially, just to summarize it, you want to create a content strategy that focuses on the bottom of the funnel. You want to create content that's written for the level of your reader. You want to create content based on interviews with experts, and you want to make sure that the content that you create has a measurable ROI. And we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail so you see what I mean. In order to make this framework work, what kind of tools do you need? What do you need to have in place? So there's a few things. First of all, HubSpot or Google Analytics with conversion tracking. I'm sure most of the people on this call have this set up, but if you don't, that's like a priority. And Google Analytics is free, so you can just do that with Google Analytics. A writer, this could be someone who's freelance or who is in-house, and if you don't have one, maybe yourself, if you can do some writing. A website blog setup. So once again, most websites have a blog, so this shouldn't be too difficult to get. And then the last two are probably the hardest one, which is, first of all, time to do 3 to 5 calls with salespeople, a growth person, maybe a product person, and we'll explain why in a second. And then finally, an internal expert who can commit to 30 minutes a week to talk about what they're an expert in. So if you have access to those tools, then you can implement this framework. But who does this framework work especially well for? It doesn't always work for everyone. So this is why I want to kind of be clear on what we've seen for what kind of company we've seen this framework work really well. First of all, if you're a company where a customer is worth over £5,000 or dollars per year, this works especially well. And the reason is very simple. It's because when a customer is worth this much, you basically need fewer per month, right, to make a certain expense worth it. Of course, most of the companies in this bracket will be B2B. And also it means that your content is going to be a lot more targeted. And that, as we'll explain later in the webinar, there's a lot more opportunity in creating incredibly targeted content in the B2B space. So we've seen this work really well if a customer is worth in the thousands. Second of all, it works very well if your product or your topic is relatively complex, which means that people are researching online. And this is simply because, when someone doesn't understand something, whether it's tax related or even if it's something B2B like open banking, one of the first places they go to is Google. And if you're seeing that, and if you know that happens, then once again, this framework is more likely to work for you. And then the third kind of criteria that we've seen is if you've already proven that you can acquire leads and customers cold. And the reason this is important is because you basically want to make sure that you can acquire a customer without them needing to understand your brand or to have basically, really have to have that strong brand trust. So basically, if you've only acquired customers via word of mouth or referrals, then that might mean that it's such a high touch type of company that really, you're better off building relationships rather than trying to use ads or something else to acquire customers cold. So for example, if you're a consultancy or investment management, something like that, we're not saying it won't work, it's just that it'll take longer, and we haven't seen it work as well, this framework. And what kind of results can you expect? So these are 2 separate screenshots from 2 clients of ours. And as you can see, the first one is a HubSpot dashboard. And when we're talking about customers worth thousands, once again here, right? So I think this was over the period of 6 weeks when you're bringing in, 5 or 6 new contacts or leads. that are incredibly high quality, and I know a few of those turned into customers, that is a really good number of leads to bring in. And so this is what is possible with really incredibly targeted B2B content. And then the second graph or the second image is just to prove that this can grow over time. This is another client of ours, and you can see here how leads have grown throughout these months with incredibly targeted B2B content. And also with this slide, what I want to demonstrate is, this is how you keep the leadership team happy, or this is how you help them, how you hit your KPIs over time. But once again, the other side of the balance, you want to keep your prospects and customers happy as well. And so these are some screenshots of the type of content that we've been able to create. And it's by creating content that includes diagrams, that's really detailed, that's actionable, that's useful. This is how you build brand trust. This is how you build a brand that, especially in the B2B space, people can look up to and see you as an expert. And we'll go into more detail about this in a second. So the four-step framework that I just mentioned, we've kind of broken it down into 4 steps in terms of how to execute on it. And this is what I'm going to go through now. The first step is tracking. Now, this is incredibly important because essentially, perhaps you're already getting, good results from your content, but if you're not tracking it, and if you don't have the right setup in place, then you can't really prove it. You can't really show it. So that's why I put this out as a first step, because, it's a quick win and perhaps you can already show some results. And you can see here on the top right, I've put the balance here, and this is more on the side of the leadership team, right? We're focusing on what they want, which is KPIs, which is results. And there's 3 reasons why tracking the results of your content, and I'm talking about leads specifically, is important. The first one is what I mentioned before. So you can prove that it's working, that it's bringing in the results, and you can keep your leadership team happy. The second one is so you can track the journey of a lead and prove marketing's contribution to a sale and even quantify it. And this is very important because essentially you can prove what you've done content-wise or anything else. And this could be the difference between, getting your marketing budget cut even more. It could be the difference between being able to continue to do content or not. So yeah, there's that's why it's incredibly important to track the journey of your lead. And then finally, for strategic purposes, so you can see what's working and what isn't. If you're seeing that a specific type of blog or specific page is bringing in really good quality leads, then that's an indication that you should do more content on that specific topic. So there's a few things there that these are like just 3 of the reasons why it's worth tracking your content. And these are some examples of what that would look like. So if you've got HubSpot, you want to be able to see basically where they first interaction, did they find out about your product via a blog post, or were they more like influenced? And then if you've got Google Analytics, it might look something like this. And just these numbers can often be enough to give something to your higher ups and then work from there. Yeah, and so the second pillar, or the second step, is to start creating content that focuses more on the bottom of the funnel. And the reason is simply, we're not saying here only do bottom of the funnel. We're not saying this is like the end and just that's all you should do. We're just saying that if considering the economic conditions that we're in right now, and considering the fact that you're probably feeling a bit more pressure from the higher ups, now is a good time to focus on what gives results that are a bit more immediate, or a bit not immediate, but a bit more short term. So I've put together here kind of the answer to the question of, okay, but how do I create bottom of the funnel content? What does that look like? So a few ways, well, here's like a step-by-step process to do that. The first step is set up calls with the people on your team that you think could help you understand basically what is the indication that a customer's, or a prospect is close to becoming a customer. So we like to set up a call with maybe someone on the sales team, someone on the growth team, maybe someone from customer service, also someone from the founding team. and ask them questions to do with your product, with your marketing. I've actually put a list here of some of the types of questions that we like to ask. Things like, what was the last prospect that you had a really easy time closing? You'd ask this to the sales team probably. Or what is a product that we're usually compared to? Or what is the most common reason that people buy our product? So these kind of questions will help you really understand what are the signs, what are the indications that a prospect is close to converting, is close to reaching out. It's just good practice to record those calls, because then what you can do is go through the recording and take notes of the phrases that stand out. So specifically, you want to look for stuff like pain points or use cases or specific problems that keep coming up. And then here I'm talking about the big five. So this is these are 5 common questions. Here I've put them here that consumers or customers or you and I, anyone looks up online when they're trying to understand a product better. So imagine you're looking for a new laptop. You're going to compare that laptop to other solutions, or you're looking for best types of laptops. So these are just the 5 big areas that customers and consumers like to research online, as well as B2B. Like this applies to both B2B and B2C. So with those big 5 in mind and all your recordings, you can basically go through and look for kind of key things or key themes that keep turning up that you think are that you think indicates that someone is close to looking for your product, that you think basically, you know that they're going online and they're ready to convert. I put some examples here, and these are basic ones because obviously it depends on your product. But if, for example, you're a B2B payments company and you do APIs, then something like targeting the key phrase payment API might be a really good one. Or if you offer a product that is quite similar to Plaid or to Stripe or another competitor like that, a comparison post that compares these different solutions could also be a good idea. Or if you're an open banking provider, like this key phrase is something that definitely some people are looking up, right? They may be wanting to start working with an open banking solution, and they're comparing different solutions, and ranking for this will get you in front of them. And we've targeted keywords like these for complex B2B payments product. And I mean, you've seen the screenshots before. It does work. It does bring in good quality customers. So basically those 2 pillars that I've just talked about, these were the ones that are going to keep that side of the balance happy, the leadership team. That's what's going to bring in the results. That's what's going to bring in the customers that you need to then focus on the longer term. And now we're going to go on to the other side of the balance and see and talk about the kind of content that helps build a brand, that helps build customer trust, and that brings in the longer term results. And this is what we're saying here, which is creating content based on interviews with experts. Now, the reason this is important is because we've seen a lot of content which is created mostly based on desk research. So someone's reading through some ebooks, maybe some white papers, and trying to summarize whatever is there. And that might be useful in certain situations, but if you're really trying to position your company as an expert, as a thought leader, then the best is to hear from your experts themselves, right? And what better way to build a brand, to build trust, than to have your own experts share really interesting, informative content and that is genuinely helpful. So that's why first reason you want to create content based on interviews with experts is because it's genuinely useful, and that's what ultimately longer term builds trust. The other reason is because you can get into a lot of detail about your product. Now, I know a lot of marketers aren't always very comfortable with that, but that doesn't mean, talking about your product doesn't mean being salesy, being annoying. It simply means being willing to go into a lot of detail. And being willing to go into a lot of detail really helps with trust, because you're essentially showing or demonstrating that you've got a real product, that you know what you're talking about, and that your product solves a real problem. So we've seen that by adding screenshots, explaining how a feature is working, these kind of things seem to really help with building trust and ultimately, yeah, increasing conversions as well, because someone is a lot more likely to trust you. And then finally, the final reason why this helps is because it's just a lot easier to write an article when it's based on an interview. Instead of someone, if you ever do this with a writer, they're going to be a lot more grateful, because instead of having to do tons of research and possibly missing something out, they just need to base it on the interview, and that just makes it a lot easier for everyone involved. But the hardest part that we've heard about this pillar or this approach is getting time with the experts. And trust me, I know, I've been there. We know how difficult it is. So I wanted to share some tips that we found. If you really want to create content that focuses, that is based on an interview with an expert, these are the tips that we found are quite useful to make sure you can actually set up those calls. The first one is focus on just doing it with one expert, because if you try and set up multiple calls with a lot of different experts, then it just becomes a scheduling nightmare, and really quickly you just end up spending more time scheduling and less time interviewing. So what we found works is just pick one expert, one person who's willing to sit down with you every week. Keep it to 30 minutes. If you can do 1 hour, of course, better, but just for the expert's sake, they might not have that time, especially if it's a salesperson. And so just try and pick someone who seems to know maybe a little bit about everything, and is just happy to chat with you every week for 30 minutes. The second tip is quite important to explain that the content that you're creating is for lead generation. It's not just to help marketing out. And the reason that it's important is because if not, you might end up in a situation where your expert keeps rescheduling, or just doesn't turn up to calls. And this is usually because they don't really understand, okay, why are we doing this? What is the point of this? So really sitting down with them and explaining, look, this content is to help you out as well. It's to help get leads. This could really go a long way to getting them to be on your side, essentially, and working together. And then my final tip is use the language that they use. So here I said salespeople, but you can say expert or whoever it is that you're going to interview, but you want to use their language. If it's a salesperson, something like, talk about revenue attribution, talk about SQLs, talk about the wording that they understand, so that you can really properly explain what you're trying to do. So there we have it, the third pillar, which is the other part of my balance, which is about sitting down with experts and creating content that is, genuinely useful, that actually adds value. And the best way to do that, in our experience, is by sitting down with experts and doing an interview with them. I did add some questions here, and we're going to send these slides and the recording to you afterwards, so you're welcome to check it out later. But these are some examples of the types of questions that we would ask on an interview with an expert. So, for example, if we are going to talk about payment APIs, we would start an interview with, what do you think are the challenges that someone is facing? Why would someone go online and search for payment API? What are they trying to solve for? What kind of company do you think they are? And then you'd also want to ask a bit about the product, like your own product. How does it work? Who does it benefit? Who is it best for? In what ways is it better than our competitors? If you already know the answer to that, then that's great. But in case you don't, once again, this is why it's good to talk to the expert. And one of our favorites is use cases and examples. Like, this is so key. If you're able to talk in detail and give real examples, once again, it just helps. It helps with credibility, because it shows that as a company, you've done this many times before. You've got plenty of examples. You have a lot of experience, and putting that into an article, it just helps, once again, with that second part of the balance, which is building that customer trust. And then finally, our final pillar and the fourth step is writing for the level of your buyer. Now, this is something else that we've seen in the content world, which is a lot of content seems to be written for, you can call it SEO or Google, and it seems to be more beginner focused. Something like, imagine, I don't know, what is a payment method, or what is a direct debit? And sure, there is a time and place for that, especially if you're a larger company. But if you're really trying to focus on creating content that brings in customers, you want to make sure you're writing for that person who's going to make the decision who's going to purchase. So in the B2B payments world, this is usually a product manager, perhaps a CTO or partnerships manager. And you want to make sure that you're not starting off an article with, what is a payment method? You want to make sure that you understand what they're looking for, which once again comes from that interview with an expert. And then really including all the information that you think they would find useful. So that's screenshots, links to documentation, links to a sandbox, once again, use cases and examples, diagrams. And when we've done this kind of content, we've had salespeople on our client side saying, this is exactly what they need. We're even lucky that we're able to create this kind of content, because ultimately, this is what your target market, this is what product managers are looking for when they're ready to buy a product or ready to reach out. So there you have it. This is our little 4-step framework and process that will help you create content that keeps your leadership team happy, but also keeps that balance with customers and make sure that you're doing both of these things, especially in the current conditions. We want to make sure you can show something to the higher ups, but you also want to focus on the long term and make sure that you're able to continue building that brand. So onto the survey results. We sent a survey out to our Slack group, and about 20 fintech marketers filled it in. And what I'd like to do here is essentially show you what the results that came through, as well as kind of crunch the numbers a bit and see what does that mean really. So the first question, before we get into the specific questions, we also asked like demographic questions, because this will help basically put this into context. Who are the kind of people who fill this in? So as you can see, 66%, so well over half, including this here, were B2B. So it's safe to say that most of the people who filled in the survey were B2B. So just FYI. And in terms of annual marketing budget, most had a budget, 26% had a reasonably good budget of between 100 and 500,000, but we had a pretty good distribution. That was like, we've got here like 5 to 10,000, here well over 500,000, and then here 50 and 100,000. So it's a pretty good split of marketing budget, which is why it's interesting to see kind of what, even with a bigger budget, people are still focusing on similar things. We also asked how big the marketing team was, and as you can see, close to half had a marketing team of between 2 and 5. Quite a few people had just one person marketing team, which we know is quite common in the fintech space, and one even had between 50 and 100, which is incredible, and a few were right in the middle. And then we asked them, so what kind of content do you publish? What are the formats that you use? So just FYI, this is written content, so this is not a very good way to compare with video. But as you can see, to me, what's really interesting here is that 100%, like everyone is publishing on the blog, and I'll explain why in a second. That's particularly interesting. But blog number one, well, as in everyone's publishing on the blog, close to half are publishing white papers. Considering that this is mostly B2B, then that makes sense. And then reports, and this is just smaller numbers. I wanted to dig in a little bit more to see, depending on the size of the team, what was their budget. And to be honest, there's nothing very outstanding or surprising here, I guess. Just that of the people who had a one-person team, the budget was around 5 to 10,000. This is annual, by the way. And there were a few with 50 to 100 and a few from 100 to 500. And then with those who had a team of 2 to 5 people, that was pretty evenly split between the various ranges. So I just thought it'd be interesting. Ultimately, I guess it's not super surprising. And then we also asked what funding stage their company is at. And so once again, a pretty good spread of pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series C, and quite a few private. So it was pretty well diversified on that end. And then finally, in terms of demographics, we also asked, what is the content team setup like? And yeah, 36% were all in-house, and 27% were in-house with a freelancer, and 22% in-house with an agency. So then on to the type of content and what they're doing content-wise. So 80% are publishing thought leadership. And once again, I think this totally makes sense. I know, like in the B2B space, thought leadership is like one of the first things that people like to publish. And then this is also not surprising, 77% are publishing company updates. And then since we're in the B2B space, we've got quite a few gated content, reports, guides. And then of course, the third most popular, which is educational and more top of the funnel stuff. On our end, we were, half are focusing on conversions. But I mean, I guess this also demonstrates that, there is an opportunity here, because half obviously aren't. So just something interesting. In terms of what KPIs are people accountable for, the most popular KPIs were website sessions, which is, page views, sessions, and then MQLs, along with conversions. So once again, not super surprising, but it was, it's just good to see that. Just interesting to know. And then I wanted to see what is it that companies that are Series B, Series C, private and public, what are they focusing on specifically? So I looked at those numbers, and again, it was similar to the previous one here, right? So most people are focusing on MQLs and conversions and website sessions, but fewer are focused on SQLs and more revenue-focused metrics. It'll be interesting to see, I think, in a year if this has changed due to what's going on at the moment. I guess we'll find out. And then I also wanted to look at, same private, Series B and C. What are their budgets and what type of content are they publishing? And it was very much similar to the overall numbers, which is, fresh website blog. Then we've got white papers, reports, etc. And then also the annual marketing budgets were pretty evenly distributed, except we had a few like 500K. But for B2B, and obviously Series B and C are much bigger, so this totally makes sense. And then finally, we asked respondents, what is the top challenge that you're facing as a content marketer? And there was definitely a theme throughout all of them, which is just not enough resources, not enough time, not enough bandwidth, and needing more results. And maybe not, also not being able to measure effectively the results of content. So I thought this was interesting as well. It's what I was saying at the beginning, which is that once again, marketing budgets are suffering, and there's a lot more pressure to get results. So it's, this is echoed in the Google Forms. And so the ultimate opportunity is basically the framework that I was talking about at the beginning, which is that, you're already publishing on the blog and you probably already have a writer. So why not focus on basically generating results with what you've got? Based on those results, we're seeing, only 30% of companies are tracking leads, and only 50%, only half are creating conversion-focused content. And just from what we've been able to do with B2B payments content, it really, to me, it seems that there is a missed opportunity to basically use the blog, use that kind of content to track SQLs and to create content that converts. And as one of the respondents said in the survey, do more with less. It's what I was saying earlier, right? You've already got a blog, you probably already have experts, 60% have a writer, and you want to see results. This is where we're seeing an opportunity, which is to create blog content that is very focused on revenue. So there we have it. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to put them in the questions, put them in the chat, and we can go through them. And I see there's a few in here, so I'll just go through them. Ernest, feel free to read them out if you see them. Or cool, Andres. Andreas, are you still on the call? If so, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
So Nicholas first asked, how much
Oh, okay.
content should you publish per month?
Okay, Nicolas. So how much content should be published? Yeah, I mean, we do usually 3 per month. And honestly, you don't need to do, because it's very much, it's better, it's more important to focus on who you're targeting and on targeting the right people rather than, you know, creating or producing a high number of articles. So we do 3 per month and we've seen really good results with that. If you can do more, great. It depends on the kind of content that you're creating. It's just that we find when you're creating content based on interviews, you know, between doing the interview and then writing the article, editing, publishing, I mean, if you can do more than 3, that's great, but we've seen really good results with 3. Fewer than that, yeah, I don't know. 3 is a good place to start. If you're really looking for a specific number, I would start with that. And yeah, any other questions?
Yes, Andres asked, any recommendation on how to approach the experts?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. This is one that we've also faced, the challenge we've also faced. In terms of approaching the experts, I guess the first step is to talk to the leadership team in marketing, so your CMO, and to make sure that they're bought into what you're doing first, right? And then it's kind of them to help you reach out to these experts and to really explain to them why it is that you need to talk to them and the importance of doing that. So it's what I said before. I would set up a call with one of the experts, and then I would explain why you're doing what you're doing, and then ask them if they can do 30 minutes every week with you to talk about a specific topic. Now, it's obviously a lot easier once you've got results, so you can make a case for it, but if you're just starting out, you might not have results. And it's what I said earlier, I would make it really clear that this is for lead generation. It's not just to help out, it's really to help grow the company. I think once that's really clear, especially salespeople are a lot more happier to collaborate because they understand that it's also helping them as well. So I hope that's useful. I know it's not, yeah, it's not always the easiest, but Andres, you're welcome to email me if you have more questions, and I can try and help you out, because maybe it's a specific situation. So you're welcome to reach out and I'll
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
A question from Amy. Can you talk about your process for repurposing content?
Cool. So for repurposing content, I'm guessing you're meaning from blog content to social media content. How would you be repurposing it? I don't know if Amy, you're online, you want to clarify a bit?
Yeah. So everything from let's say you already have 100+ blog posts, right?
Yeah.
Are you remixing some of the blog posts? Maybe it's an old ebook, etc. Just curious how, if you're repurposing, and if so, how you choose what to repurpose.
Well, if you are right now feeling the pressure of more results, all that stuff, I would prioritize by start with the content that people who know what the problem is, know what the solution is, and are actively looking for it. I would try and cater to these people first. So imagine you've got blog posts that are very specific and very technical, talking about APIs or talking about a specific type of payment method or whatever it is. I would start with that. Start with what people who are at the bottom of the funnel essentially are searching up and wanting to read about. And then you'd probably have 10 blogs from that, and then I'd repurpose that into social media content or LinkedIn or video, whatever it is. But I'd prioritize by what is your goal. If your goal is customers, then I would start off with that and then work my way down. But that's what we've seen works. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah,
cool.
No, thank you. Super helpful.
Nice. Any other questions, Ernest?
Nope.
Cool. There's one other thing that I hear quite a lot, which is, does that mean that you should never do thought leadership? What is the point of thought leadership? a lot of people come to us and they're like, yeah, we want thought leadership. And I think thought leadership is still incredibly like important to establish your brand, to connect with people. And even I think this process works very well with thought leadership, because once again, if you're creating content based on interviews with an expert, then it's basically, you just need to keep doing that for a thought leadership piece. So what we often do is we would do, 2 or 3 articles that are more focused on bottom of the funnel, and then 1 or 2 that is also thought leadership. So basically these 2 types of contents are quite complementary. And if you really still want to do thought leadership, then keep going, keep doing it. But if you're also feeling the pressure to get results, to bring in customers, then it's also to, more bottom of the funnel. So there are 2 strategies that really work well in conjunction with each other. Just FYI, if anyone had that question. Cool. Okay, well, that's the best. That's all on our side. We've got more information here on our blog. If you want to learn more about how to create content that converts, we also have a newsletter. We have a Slack group. You can also send an email. And we're also doing this 1-month sprint where we come in and we're helping people out. For just 1 month, we basically set them up with everything that they need to generate leads with the blog. So it's pretty much that framework that I talked about, but we help you implement that. So that could be setting up the conversion tracking, doing all the interviews, putting together the strategy, and then having all those documents so you can make sure that you're creating content that's expert-based and that also builds trust. And yeah, that's all from me. Thanks so much to everyone who joined us live today. We'll be sending the slides and the recording to everyone, so don't worry if you want to see this later. But yeah, thanks everyone. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.